single dad janitor smashed the CEO's laptop. Then the secret inside shocked the entire boardroom. The rain outside tapped softly against the tall glass windows of the 34th floor. Inside, the office lights glowed bright and cold. A place where decisions worth millions were made every day. It was past 9 p.m., and the floor was nearly empty. Only 2 people remained. The young, elegant CEO in her early 30s, dressed in a cream blazer and black heels, and the janitor, a quiet man in his late 30s, wearing a faded blue uniform with rolled-up sleeves. His name tag read simply, David. David pushed his cleaning cart down the hallway, humming softly, pretending not to notice the tension in the CEO's office. But he did notice. He noticed everything. The CEO sat at her desk, staring at her private laptop, nervously tapping her pen against the table. On the screen was a video call. A group of investors promising to double her company's value overnight. The deal looked perfect. Too perfect. They were urging her to sign the transfer within the hour. Once you approve, the funds will move instantly. One of the men on the screen said with a polished smile. David quietly entered the office to mop the floor. He wasn't supposed to be there during meetings, but tonight, something felt off. He overheard a few words. Transfer codes, confidential, urgent deadline. He froze. His hands tightened around the mop handle. David wasn't always a janitor. Years ago, he was a systems technician before losing everything. His job, his house, his wife. Now he worked nights to support his 7-year-old daughter, and those words he just heard. They hit him like a warning bell. He looked at the screen for a moment, enough to see the coding structure of the financial document. His heart skipped. He recognized the pattern. An old phishing algorithm disguised as a corporate deal. It was a scam. He hesitated, unsure of what to do. He was just a janitor now. No one would believe him. And interrupting a CEO's private deal could cost him his job. But he thought of his daughter. Of the stories he told her every night about doing what's right. Even when it's hard. The CEO stood to grab a document from the printer, her laptop still open on the table. David took a slow breath, his pulse hammering in his ears. Then, without another thought, he reached over with the edge of his mop handle and smashed the laptop screen. The sharp crack of breaking glass echoed across the silent floor. The CEO turned, eyes wide. "What did you just do?" Security rushed in moments later, followed by the board members who had been in another meeting down the hall. David stood still, his hands trembling but his eyes calm. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "but that laptop was being used to scam you. The files, they weren't real. It was a phishing trap." The CEO was furious. "You think you know what's going on here? You're a janitor," she snapped. But before anyone could say more, one of the IT directors, drawn by the commotion, stepped in. He quickly accessed the damaged drive through the backup terminal. As he scrolled, his expression changed. "Wait," he murmured. "He's right. The files were fake. The deal was a sophisticated cyber scam, designed to drain millions through a disguised offshore transaction." The room went silent. The CEO's hands slowly dropped to her sides as the realization hit. If she had clicked approve, the company would have lost everything, and her reputation would have been destroyed. She looked at David, this quiet, tired man in a cheap uniform, standing there like he didn't belong in the room but somehow had saved it all. Her voice trembled. "How did you even know?" David looked down. "I used to work in cybersecurity, before life happened." But for a long moment no one spoke. The only sound was the rain outside, falling softly against the glass. The CEO turned toward the window, blinking rapidly to hold back tears she didn't understand. She'd built her company on logic and profit, but tonight, it was saved by someone who had nothing to gain. When she turned back, David was quietly packing his cleaning supplies. "Wet," she said softly. "Don't go." The board members watched as she walked over to him, extending her hand. He hesitated, then shook it, rough fingers meeting manicured ones. She didn't say much after that. But the next morning, when the employees arrived, word had already spread about the janitor who saved the company, and by noon, there was a new nameplate on the door to the IT department. It read, David, cybersecurity consultant. The same man who once cleaned the floors now protected the company's foundation, not with a mop, but with truth. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall office windows, touching everything with a warm glow. The air felt different, lighter, calmer. People moved quietly, whispering about what had happened the night before. When David arrived, still in his faded blue uniform, he noticed something unusual. His cleaning cart was gone. In its place stood a sleek laptop box, a cup of fresh coffee, and an envelope with his name on it. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note. David, last night, you didn't just save this company. You reminded us all what integrity looks like. People like you don't just clean rooms. You clean hearts, with respect. The board. David stood there for a long moment, his throat tightening. For years, he'd walked these halls invisible to everyone. The man people passed without looking, the one who worked when others slept. And yet, when it mattered most, his small act of courage had changed everything. Later that day, the CEO called an emergency town hall meeting. Every employee gathered, from the top executives to the front desk staff. David tried to stay at the back, blending in, but she called him forward. Everyone turned as he slowly made his way up. The CEO spoke, her voice steady but full of emotion. Last night, this man saw what none of us did. He listened to his conscience, even when it could have cost him his job. That's what leadership truly means. Not power, but courage. She handed him a new badge. Not a temporary one, not a cleaning pass, but a full-time employee ID. Welcome to the team, David, our new cybersecurity consultant. Applause erupted through the room. Some people even stood up. David blinked rapidly, fighting tears. For the first time in years, he felt seen. He looked out at the crowd, then at the CEO and said quietly, I just did what anyone should do when they see something wrong. Titles don't make us responsible. Hearts do. There was silence, and then another wave of applause. Later that evening, David drove home in his old car, the sun dipping low behind the city skyline. His daughter waited by the window, waving as he pulled up. She ran into his arms, laughing. Daddy, why are you smiling so much today? She asked. He picked her up and kissed her forehead. Because, sweetheart, he said softly, sometimes doing the right thing might break something, but it also fixes everything that truly matters. And as they stood there, a tired man and his little girl, bathed in the last light of day, the world felt just a little bit kinder.